That was weird. Yeah.
Mayor, 30 seconds.
Okay. Thank you, Jorge. Yeah, almost lost it. So. Okay. All right. I think we have everyone here, and welcome everyone this evening to our city council meeting for September 9th. And glad to see everyone safe. We have kind of a very
This conference will now be recorded.
we have a lot of devastation taking place in our beautiful state of Oregon this week. So but we have to conduct some business and take care of that. So I'll call the meeting to order. And Jorge, would you like to put up the Pledge of Allegiance, the flag, so everyone can recite it in their own homes?
Yes, I'm getting there. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jorge. And Mary, could we get a roll call, please?
Olson,
Here.
Sykes,
Here.
Bessie Johnson. Here. Rich Kellum,
Here.
Alex Johnson,
Here.
Bill Coburn,
Here.
Thank you, Mary. Did you want to go ahead and mute yourself, or did you? Yeah. For some reason, your camera were picking up some feedback. So, yeah. There's going to be one change this evening, council, and that's going to be we will be having an executive session at the end of the meeting. And before that executive session, if Mary, if you can kind of email me the script so I can be able to read that when we get to at the very end of our meeting on that. So, and then before our public hearing, Peter,
Yes, ma'am.
you had something
Yeah.
you wanted to change.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. I'll just point out that executive session is for potential litigation purposes. And I had asked for a couple of minutes before we go into the public hearings to hear a little bit from Shane Wooten about our efforts in response to conflagrations in the state, and to give you a little bit more information about what the other departments are doing. So I'd call on Shane now to update you.
All right, Chief, where's he at? There he is. Okay.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. To begin, let me thank you for your continual support. As Chief, it is nice to know that you have our back. It also allows our people to do their job with confidence, and I can tell you our entire department is appreciative of that. Overall, and I'll get to this slide in just a minute here. There'll be a few slides during this brief presentation. So overall, there's a lot of fire on Oregon's landscape, and their weather events in the last few days have exacerbated an already bad situation. This morning, I counted 14 fires that the Northwest Interagency Coordination Center is tracking, and that doesn't count any fires that started today. And if any of you have been watching the news, you'll see that new ones have popped up today, and existing ones have just grown larger. The state is actually looking at going through and requesting resources from other states, similar like when we send resources to California to help with their wildland fires. The state and the governor announced they're going to be in the process of doing the same to get resources up here to Oregon. Specifically regarding our community, I'm informing you, but I also, hope the community hears this. Albany is currently not under an immediate threat by the two large existing fires around us. However, things can change rapidly and do change rapidly. For example, just late this afternoon, we had a series of fires along I-5 that have been extinguished, but it serves as a reminder just how quickly can things change. This is also a reminder that I'd encourage our community to sign up for Lynn Benton Alert. Lynn Benton Alert, what it is, if you're already not signed up, you log into this website, and you can access this through the city's website, and you're able to enter your phone number, and then we're able to use a reverse 911 system to call you if indeed we ever have to do evacuations. And it allows the GIS people to really kind of pinpoint who is getting the calls, because when you start doing evacuation levels, you know, sometimes they don't follow clean street lines. They maybe follow topography or something along those lines. And this allows the GIS folks to be more exact on who gets those alerts. So next Jorge's gonna bring up the evacuation maps posted on the Lynn County website. The first fire I'd like to talk about, well, there's two fires that were existing fires that we're going to talk about and we're monitoring from Albany Fire Department's perspective for its impact on our community. The first is the one to the south, bottom of the slide. That's the Holiday Farm fire. It was originally called the Rainbow Fire, but the name has since changed. At the command post, we have Deputy Chief Kyle Romey, who's assigned to one of the state's incident management teams and is a part of the state conflagration. And I know I've explained to you what a conflagration is. I'll explain it again for if there's maybe viewers that haven't heard before. But if a community exhausts all of its resources, or a county exhausts all of its resources on whether it be a fire or a flood, the governor is able to enact the Conflagration Act, which allows other municipal fire departments to send resources to help that community stand back up on its feet. Unfortunately, right now, though, there are while there's 3 conflagrations that have resources staffed, there are many more counties right now in our state that have requested a conflagration and resources, but there just aren't any resources to give. He reported, Chief Roman reported today that they are still actively doing evacuations on that fire. He also reported that the devastation will probably be great in that area along 126. I know personally down there that some of the volunteers down there and employees of the fire departments have lost their homes. So it's because of this fire that maybe you've heard that Holly is under, the city of Holly right outside of Sweet Home is on a level 2 evacuation order, and why Sweet Home is on a level 1 evacuation order. Just for, so you know, the state adopted a ready, set, go. So level 1 is we ask people to prepare to evacuate. Level 2 is prepare to leave at a moment's notice. So your car is packed, your valuables are put away or put in your car, and that you're ready to leave at a moment's notice. And then lastly is a level 3, leave immediately. Well, so right now, Sweet Home is in a level 1. And along the lines, Jorge, we can go to the next slide. Along the lines of just how quickly things change, we originally were going to be sending resources under our mutual aid agreements to Sweet Home to help ODF, again, because there's just such a lack of resources with some operations they were going to do, because the fire has gone from Highway 126 to the Upper Calapooya and has what appears to have crossed the Upper Calapooya, which then poses a threat to Sweet Home. So thankfully, though, I just was informed literally minutes before this council meeting that the fire had laid down. And in firefighter terms, that means that the fire has lost some of its intensity. And that could be because of a lot of things, just all the smoke we're having. The very nature of that causes fire fire can't burn as hot and intense as it can maybe with a clear sky, where there's, the temperature is, 10, 20 degrees higher because the clouds are not there, versus now with this layer we have, it helps keep temperatures down. So the fire's laid down, and ODF has said that they're going to hold off on doing anything so they can gather more intelligence and get a better idea of what is going to happen, given that the weather, we should over the next day or two be going through a shift where those east winds start to subside, and we get some wind that we're a little more accustomed to, that has a bit more humidity to it than the wind we've been getting the last few days. So then on the top of the map is the Santiam Canyon fire. That's formerly known as the Beachy Creek fire and the Lion's Head fire. And those two fires have merged. This fire has led to evacuations from essentially the crest of the Cascades down to Staten. Currently, Staten is at a level 2, and towns like Lyons, Mill City, Gates, and Detroit are at a level 3. We currently have 2 engines up there, along with Division Chief Scott Cowan, who is responsible for one of those divisions. And to give you a little explanation, when we go and respond and manage large-scale incidents, we break them up into divisions, which are smaller geographic areas, that we then start assigning resources to those areas. This fire is also one of the 3 staff with incident management, with State of Oregon incident management teams. However, we did respond Monday night to this fire under our mutual aid agreement with some of those departments. That, it takes a little bit of time to mobilize under the Conflagration Act, and as fire was working its way into the canyon, specifically into Lyons, Albany Fire Department, as well as some other departments, just didn't waste any time, and we sent resources up there to help right away. I'm going to tell you, especially with the Santiam Creek fires, more intelligence comes out on it and information comes out. I fear both of these fires, there's likely going to be significant loss for many of these communities as the upcoming days unfold. Specifically with the Santiam Canyon fire, the Marion County Sheriff, I'm not sure if you saw this or not yet, but just a few hours ago released that the first 2 fatalities from that fire, and there unfortunately likely will be more. And then, as far as just the devastation of the structures, you have seen some of the same videos I have, where so many people's lives are going to be impacted. It's really a tragic event. So AFD is also assisting with some other logistical topics at the fairground, but City Manager Troedson will speak to that later this evening, along with the other activities the city is helping to do. The other thing I'd just like to share is that as a fire department, we've been really active trying to push out social media to our community. We really want to get the word out on the Ready, Set, Go so our community understands what that means. We also want to make sure that our community signs up for Benton Alert. So in case something does happen and fire does progress our way, that we're able to quickly get information out to our community so people know how to react and know what the terminology is. So our Matt Harrington has been really active trying to get information out and helping our department and the city, and extremely appreciative of that. And also we want to get information out to people, and this is the lower right-hand side, remember the 6 Ps, of things that they can do at home to help make their home fire safe. There are some things that just as a regular homeowner that you can do to make your home a little more safe, as well as to be prepared. So as for our department, I always appreciate you generally ask how's everybody doing at AFD? So I'm just going to answer that question so you don't even have to ask it. That our people are doing good. They're staying true to their character, and they're looking for ways to help people. over the last couple of days, I can't tell you how many people that employees that I've had come into my office and say, "Hey, we're chomping at the bit. Let us go. We're ready to do something." We are blessed as a community to have a fire department full of people who have kind of a servant attitude and want to make a difference in our community as well as other people's communities. So with that, I mean, if anybody has any questions, I'll do my best to try to answer them.
All right. Chief, we are so appreciative of you and all of your staff. We're fortunate for Albany to have such a quality staff, and they're always there wanting to give a helping hand whenever there is need. And I just hope everybody stays safe and we get through this very quickly. So, counselors, do you have any questions? No. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And you don't have to hang around for the meeting. So you've got a lot on your plate right now. So we just appreciate you getting us filled in this evening. So
Hey, thank you. We'll go back to work.
all right. Thanks, Chief. Okay. All right. Next on the, we have a public hearing this evening. And this is a legislative public hearing regarding planning file DC 0220. The applicant is City of Albany Community Development Department Planning Division. I call to order this legislative public hearing at 7:30 p.m. And this is going to also, let's see, I was going to do both public hearings, but I did not get we will do both public hearings at the same time. The other one's going to be for the Albany Municipal Code, Chapter 7.9. But we'll do both hearings at the same time, so both opened at 7:30. If you wish to testify, there will be two options available, which were described on the agenda. For all those wishing to testify, please be aware that you must raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue. If you later want to raise that issue on appeal, testimony and evidence must be directed towards approval standards, staff prescribe, or other criteria in the Comprehensive Development Code, which you believe the decision. If additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the council may allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with enough detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. So at this time, all staff report from Public Works Engineering and Community Development Director Jeff Blaine and Project Planner David Martineau. Oh, I'm presuming both of them are on.
Hi, this is David. I'm on.
Oh, hello, David.
Let's see.
Okay.
The first part of the presentation is.
Or do you want me to go?
Nope, you're ready with your slides. Just let me know when to change them.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to be pretty brief. I'm just wanting to give a brief introduction to the staff report tonight. We have our consultant Angelo planning group here to help answer questions. David's going to give a typical staff report as well. Those two groups should be able to answer detailed questions that you have. Just wanted to talk big picture for a moment and kind of set the stage about how we got to where we are, what we're currently doing, and where we're headed next. So real quickly here, this first slide is just a highlight of the initial goals that we had when we set out to do this project. We didn't quite yet have our arms around exactly what it was going to entail, but these were the things we were hoping to accomplish. We weren't able to do maybe everything that we had hoped we would be able to do when we started out, but we were largely able to accomplish these goals, and we were very confident in the package that we have in front of you tonight, and we're happy to be able to bring it forward to you. Next slide, please. So this project actually started back in 2016 when the City Council and the Planning Commission first authorized us to pursue a code audit. That audit was done in 2017 and involved interviews with the City Council, Planning Commission, the development community, and staff. The Planning Commission and City Council then took all of the issues that were identified and they prioritized them on which ones that they wanted us to tackle first. And there were 7 categories of code issues that were ultimately grouped as the highest priorities for us to evaluate. We did a few little preliminary projects in 2018, and then in later in 2018, the City Council formed a 12-member task force that was meant to represent a cross-section of the community. And over the course of 2 years, there were 12 task force meetings, 5 joint City Council Planning Commission task force meetings, 2 open houses, and 2 public surveys. And all of that went into developing the code package that's in front of you tonight. This package that's in front of you was made available to the public on July 7th, also to the City Council and the Planning Commission at that time. Went to a public hearing with the Planning Commission in August, and then it's obviously here in front of you in September. This package of amendments addresses 5 of the original 7 high priority issues that were addressed. As you see in that last bullet there, the last 2 remaining high priority issues are in the last phase of this project, which is currently underway and should be complete by around the end of the fiscal year. But in addition to those, David, if you could go back to the prior slide for just one moment, please.
Sure.
In addition to those 5 high priority issues that are addressed in this package of amendments, we were also able to address 4 additional categories that were originally identified in that code audit. And that was done out of necessity. Once we got into the code, there was just too many interlinking pieces between code sections. And so we needed to get in there and address those. So we were able to accomplish more than we originally set out to do. In addition to that, Article 1 has been completely rewritten for consistency with state statute and rule. The rest of the code and just general ease of use. It was a significant work effort. There was no way to avoid doing it. It just simply needed to be done. So that's been incorporated as well. Next slide, please, David. All right, so one of the things that specifically Councillor Kellum requested that we do is when we came back to this public hearing, he wanted us to report to you on any issues that the task force identified through their process where there seemed to be consensus among them where they thought we should circle back on the code on specific issues and reevaluate them or reconsider the code. So that's what the intent of this slide is to respond to that request. And the reason that was important was because we had a defined scope that you gave us to work in. And so as ideas were coming out that were outside of that scope, there was really a desire to not lose track of them. So I think it was helpful to the task force and to staff to create that parking lot and then loop back and provide these here for you tonight. So the 3 items that the task force identified were reevaluating paving requirements for parking and equipment storage areas, window transparency standards for the mount and location of windows, and then some procedural changes in how conditional use modifications are handled. In addition to what the task force identified, staff also learned more as we went through this process, and we identified 3 items here that we thought we should add to our list to loop back to in the future. The top one being looping back to the mixed use zones, because prior work efforts focused on the downtown code amendments. These ones are on residential, commercial standards, and the mixed use ones are kind of that next grouping that should be gone to evaluate in detail, in our opinion. In addition to this, I want to point out that today, and David, if you could put the letter that we received today up.
Do you see it?
No, not yet.
Okay. Bear with me just a second.
So I'll go ahead and start talking about it while you work to get that up. We received a letter today to go into the record from Dan Watson at K&D Engineering. He was also a member of the task force, and he wanted to provide 4 observations for council.
Hey, the letter appears to be up now. Is it up?
No, it is not.
Not here.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and start it again, Jorge, so maybe I can pull it up here in a second.
Yeah, sounds good. Hey, Jeff, we can't hear you, Jeff.
Jeff is not coming through.
Yeah, we can look
It's
at our,
not working, but it's not coming through.
yeah, we can look at our phones and see the letter. We all received it by email. Did we lose
It's
Jeff?
disappointing. I had it ready to go.
Nope, Jeff's there.
Okay, I think I can pull it
I
up
read
here.
it
in just
online.
a
I could
second.
barely read it.
All right, Jorge, can you share my screen now?
Yeah, you're a presenter, so you should be able to just click on the screen and then select the actual screen.
Got it. There we are.
Yep, you can see it now. But Jeff is a little bit frozen there.
Well, I'm going to speak in his behalf here unless he gets unstuck, and I'll let him have the floor again. So essentially, we got this letter from Dan Watson, again, a member of the task force, and he did bring up some of the things that we thought we would be adding to the parking lot. One of those areas has to do with the minimum window requirements, parking lot restriping. Jeff, if you're on board, you can take over.
Okay, great. Sounds like you were just kind of summarizing there. So to finish that up, some of the items that he had there are already on that list that we identified. Some of them are things that were just outside the scope of the project that we're working on. But certainly where it talks about simplifying code and reducing unnecessary procedures, we're of the same mind to look for those opportunities. So one of the things we're going to be doing in the coming months is coming back to council to reevaluate, our ongoing list of code issues to consider tackling, and going through another prioritization process to see what you want us to do next. And so I think providing this to us, in addition to what we got from the task force and what we have from the prior code audit, will provide a good basis for that ongoing discussion. All right, next slide.
Okay. Are you seeing the slide yet? Okay.
Not
Let me
yet,
try it
not
again.
yet.
Hang on. Okay, we're working on it.
See, you're showing your email now.
Okay, I'm going to try it one more time. Hang on. Sorry about this. You know, you go through this 100 times and it still ends up with situations.
That's okay. The next slide just had the task force members' names on it. They invested a lot of time and energy in this project, and we wouldn't have gotten to the high quality product that we did without their support. Dan was on that task force. The council representative was Rich. So thank you, Councilor Kellum, for your participation. I'll just read the other names here real quick. Chris Equinoa, John Pascone, Cordell Post, Larry Preston, Dave Reese, Candice Rivera, Bill Riles, Wayne Sheeler, Janet Steele, Dan Watson, and Joanne Zimmer. So thank you to those members of our community. And my last slide for you is the next one. Just a few things for you to keep in mind as you work through this tonight. Obviously, based on that timeline, there was a significant amount of effort that went into this point, and there was a lot of compromises made along the way. And I think you saw that in our joint meetings that we held, where no one person probably got everything that they wanted out of this, but there was a lot of compromise, discussion, and general consensus reached, and we're very happy about that. Also, the amendments were provided for review to the public and all of you for more than a month ahead of that first public hearing with the Planning Commission. We wanted to make sure that the public, with such a large document of changes, had an opportunity to have the time they needed to review it, in addition to the commission and council. And lastly, this code amendments are not never-ending process. We need to evaluate, improve, and modernize our code continuously. And what we're doing tonight, while we gave it our best effort and tried to think of everything, there may be things that don't work as intended, and we need to be willing to try them and loop back and improve them over time. So thank you for giving us the authorization to do this project and get it to this point, and I'll turn it over to David.
Thank you, Jeff. Also with us tonight are Kathy Corliss and Kate Rogers with Angelo Planning Group. Angelo Planning Group is a leader in the urban and community planning field, and their services include comprehensive planning, concept and master planning, development code updates, and development services. As a key member of our project team, they've been involved with our local efforts to audit and update the development code since 2017, and their assistance has been invaluable. Kathy and Kate are available following the presentation to help answer questions you may have concerning any of these proposed amendments. Everybody can see this okay? All right, I'll press on. Amendments to the Albany Development Code are considered a Type 4 legislative process. The Planning Commission was asked to make a recommendation for City Council's consideration, and the Planning Commission did indeed make a recommendation at their August hearing date, and we brought this here to you tonight for the public hearing on September 9th. And we received comments from Department of Land Conservation and Development expressing support for the amendments, and then 2 other written comments were submitted after the deadline, and they were included in your package tonight. If approved, the proposed amendments would take effect January 1st, 2021. That would allow staff to some time to make the necessary changes to land use application forms and checklists that we'll need to do and provide certainty for the development community. So the staff report organization begins by providing background on the project, starting with the 2017 Development Code audit. This is followed by a summary of proposed changes. Information concerning public notifications provided along with the review and appeal process. The proposed amendments were then analyzed in accordance with Development Code Amendment review criteria, which is found in section 2.290 of the Development Code, followed by conclusion and staff recommendation. The presentation is meant just to be an overview tonight. You've already been given the staff report and the web link to see the package of amendments. So most of this presentation will overview changes to Article 1, which is the administrative procedures, and Article 8, which features the design standards. A few other minor amendments will be touched on in some articles, and we'll spend minimal time discussing edits and cross-referencing changes in the remaining articles. And we will review each article in order. So Article 1 lists our administrative procedures and establishes the framework for the review and processing of land use applications. Significant amendments to Article 1 were not within the original project scope, as Jeff had mentioned. However, upon further review, it was apparent that a complete overhaul was required to address errors, inconsistencies, and compliance with current program requirements. The project team worked closely with the city attorney to update the procedures in a manner that's consistent with current processes and review types. Amendments to Article 1 specify which applications are required to have a pre-application conference or a neighborhood meeting. This replaces the current code's broad statement that pre-application conferences are mandatory for all applications unless waived by the director. Procedures for each application type are also laid out in an easier to read table format, making it easier for both the planner and the applicant. In addition, some of the procedures were updated to ensure clear and objective standards for residential development as required by state law. For example, for neighborhood meetings, rather than leaving it to the discretion of the director as to whether to notify, the notification distance should be extended up to 1,000 feet for all larger residential developments, a clear and objective standard of 1,000 feet is proposed, so it removes the discretion there. A change was also made to the Type 2 review process. The amended code is generally consistent with Albany's current requirements, but it's been adjusted for consistency with the procedures for land use decisions made without a hearing in accordance with state law. In the amended notice requirements for Type 2 reviews, notice of decision would be sent to all persons entitled to notice rather than just the applicant and those who commented as required by state law. A local appeal is required for this type of decision. So now we'll shift to Article 2, and the changes there address our land use review criteria. So the most significant changes in Article 2 center on implementing a secondary discretionary review track through a Type 3 adjustment process and providing clear and objective review criteria and notice requirements where required. The clear and objective track specifies design requirements in ways that require no staff interpretation. The standards are met, approval of the application will be granted. Review is generally done through a plan check of a building permit application or a Type 1 review and does not require a land use action. The discretionary track is a type of review which states the purpose, intent, or guideline that must be achieved by the design, with the burden of proof on the applicant to make a case to the decision maker for why the proposed design meets the intent or the guideline. Decisions are made based on a set of established criteria. Review is generally either at the staff level with notice, but no hearing, except on appeal or at a hearing before a planning commission through the Type 3 process. Additionally, to comply with current regulations, proposed amendments are included for annexations. Council had previously deferred annexation amendments due to legal appeals taking place in other cities and potential legislative fixes during the last session. Well, the appeals ultimately failed and the legislative amendments did not move forward. So our code amendments are proposed to bring Albany into compliance with state law. So Articles 3, 4, and 5 contain our residential, non-residential, and mixed-use zoning districts, respectively. Proposed amendments to Articles 3, 4, and 5 include minor revisions to the schedule of permitted uses, special conditions, and updates to fix cross-references in figure and table numbers. Density bonuses have been clarified, and the 125-foot setback for properties adjacent to designated farmlands has been removed from Article 3. Zero lot line standards have been clarified in Article 4, and in Article 5, proposed amendments include a minor revision to the schedule of permitted uses and associated special conditions to account for the new Type 3 adjustment review, removing discretionary language related to residential development in the MS and ES districts, and additional minor revisions to make the standards more clear and objective. Article 6 includes our natural resource districts. Proposed amendments to Article 6 are limited to those required for a clear and objective review path for needed housing. The code has been amended for compliance while preserving landowners' ability to develop their property under the same guidelines that they do today. It's intended to clarify that under the clear and objective standard, the applicants may not develop new dwelling units or create new residential lots or parcels within the special flood hazard area or significant natural resource overlay district. Applications for residential development within these areas would be required to comply with the existing standards and review criteria, as is currently the case. Changes to hillside development standards will allow applicants to have the option to provide a certification rather than a geotechnical report. Again, this is a broad overview, so if you have questions on this, at the end of the presentation, we'll be happy to take your questions. Article 7 pertains to the historic overlay districts. Proposed amendments to Article 7 were limited to cross-reference and formatting updates. Now, you might recall that you recently approved another set of amendments related to Article 7. That took place at your last council meeting. Those amendments aligned with the timing of the issuance of a demolition permit with the demolition land use review period. It added protections to Natural Register historic resources to comply with state law, and it amended sections of Article 7 to remove the word advisory from all title references to Landmarks Commission. The amendments you're considering tonight will not modify those changes that you've already approved, and that will be made clear in our recommended motion that we've proposed to you this evening. Article 8 design standards contains most of the task force work for phases 1 and 2 of this project. The biggest impetus for amending Article 8 is, and for the Development Code Amendments project overall, to provide a completely clear and objective review track for residential development as required by state law. Design standards for single-family and multiple-family residential development have been amended to make them entirely clear and objective, while also adding flexibility to many of the standards. Design standards for single-family homes were modified in the following ways. We added subsections to clarify that when the home is on a corner lot or has more than one public street frontage, the applicant can choose on which frontage to meet the home orientation standards. Standards for street-facing windows were amended to allow windows in both garages and pedestrian doors to count toward the 15% minimum coverage requirement. Finally, infill standards were rewritten with the intent of making standards clear and objective and easier to apply. So multi-family design standards were revised as well to add some specificity and flexibility for recreational and open space areas, and also added new credit for providing high-value outdoor space amenities based on the cost of the amenities as a percentage of the total project cost. And we reduced the requirements for private open space, both in terms of the amount required and the minimum dimensions. We provided two options for setback and building orientation. There's the street orientation option, and then there's the enhanced landscape option. Functional design and building details that originally applied to multifamily developments in the downtown zones will now apply to all multifamily development across the city. We added clarity to when additional transition setback applies and capped it at 30 feet. Other amendments address pedestrian connections, vehicle circulation, and parking location. Design standards for commercial and institutional development were amended to exempt development in the heavy industrial zoning district, as well as utility substations and other facilities that do not have on-site personnel. Changes were made to language concerning building entrance orientation and parking location, facade design, articulation, and window coverage. We reduced window coverage requirements for secondary facades on lots with more than one street-facing facade and added exceptions to when the secondary facade must meet the standard. Standards for street connectivity and internal circulation were reworked to make them clearer and easier to interpret. Proposed design standards for internal travel aisles are the same as they are for multifamily development. We created a revised sliding scale and a weighted menu to provide flexibility and give preference to higher benefit amenities, and revised standards to allow amenities in the public right-of-way and existing amenities on a site to count towards their requirement. Finally, changes were made to the pedestrian and bicycle connection requirements, large parking areas, and compatibility standards. It's important to note that the purpose statements were added to numerous code sections to provide guidance for adjustment requests as part of the two-track review process. Tree protection standards to Article 9 required updates to accommodate a clear and objective track for needed housing. Proposed amendments retain the existing site plan review criteria for tree felling that are currently working, but provide a new optional clear and objective track for housing development. The clear and objective track outright allows removal of trees that are impacted by proposed development, but prohibits removal of those that are not. However, applicants can opt for the existing discretionary criteria. Amendments to Albany Municipal Code 7.98 are required in tandem with these development code amendments and will be adopted by City Council through a separate ordinance through this hearing tonight. Minor revisions are proposed to buffering and screening standards to make the standards clear and objective and to allow the waiver of buffering and screening requirements through the Type 3 adjustment process. So for Articles 10, 11, and 13, those amendments were basically limited to cross-reference and formatting updates. However, amendments to the cluster development standards, specifically Section 11.460, which is the designation of permanent natural areas, are intended to prioritize preservation of Oregon white oaks throughout the city and not just in South Albany, and provide more specificity for measurements that are consistent with other sections of the code. Proposed amendments to Article 12 are limited to clarifying how public improvement standards relate to clear and objective requirements for needed housing and other minor housekeeping items. We've added a definition, and it's called CPTED, or crime prevention through environmental design. We've added that definition in support of proposed amendments to Article 8, as well as gender neutral language corrections proposed in 2 locations in Article 22. So in conclusion, the proposed amendments provide clearer and more objective standards. They increase efficiencies through changes to review processes for certain types of proposals, resulting in quicker decisions, retain and improve flexibilities, improve overall functionality of the code, and correct inconsistencies with state requirements. Based on the analysis in the staff report, we believe that the proposed development code text amendments meet the applicable review criteria. Therefore, the Planning Commission as well as staff recommend their approval. Thanks for your attention tonight. I know it's quite a bit to go through, but I sure do appreciate you giving it a few minutes to listen to the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. Any counselors have any questions of the staff report? Rich?
Well, it's not so much a question as it is. I guess I'd like to, and I appreciate staff's.
But we're not getting your. There's some
How about now?
No?
back
You're not getting,
there. That's better.
okay?
Yep.
Well, I guess I'd like to thank staff for their approach to this thing, because they acted like they didn't know everything, and they asked people who did know about building and that kind of thing, the economics therein, what's going to work. And I know the folks in the building industry appreciated that. I mean, we all have our areas of expertise. We can't know everything. And there were enough people there with differing perspectives, so a lot of good stuff got talked about. Would I want to do it again? Probably not. But it's not going to be my problem now. So, I mean, that's all I want to say.
Okay. All right, Bessie?
Yeah, at this time, in case I forget or don't get to later, really want to thank the committee and staff. This is a lot of work. And, you know, just to follow through with it, I mean, it was a lot of work just to read it. But I did have one question. I don't know if this is right place, but I didn't see any changes or anything about the, I think it's 8030, but ADUs. Is that not in this? I mean, it should be in the code development. And so I just wondered, I didn't see any changes at all. And I just wondered where that was. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that will be processed on a separate track, actually, and that the proposal basically that we took last time to council concerning ADUs, we'll be bringing this all back to you at the September 28th council meeting. I'm sorry, the Planning Commission meeting on September 28th. It'll come to council October 14th. So yes, the ADUs is on track. It's just a separate track than this particular one.
Okay, but if anyone wants to, say if anyone wants to start one now, since we've approved it, is, they can go on with it, can they not wait for procedure?
Unfortunately, we were advised that we need to go back through the Planning Commission and bring it back to City Council to ensure that we're following the legal procedure that we need to follow.
I think Bessie's question was, is if somebody is wanting to look at building an ADU,
Yeah.
would staff be letting them know it would be the 900, they could go to the 900 square feet since this is going to be getting adopted next month? Is that the question?
I would
Beth?
let Sean weigh in on that, but my take on it at this point, without Sean weighing in on it, would be that we would have to apply the state minimum standard, and the square footage of the ADU is not something that the state law dictated. That was one area that we had some discretion to change. So the fact that they could build an ADU, that they could have a detached ADU, yes, we would continue to advise the public of that, but to enable them to go up to a 900 square foot size, that would require the code to be amended. I see Sean, is that something that you would agree with?
Yep, that is accurate. Until we get the code changed, we have to go by what's in our code footage. And so we'll continue to do that until we can amend the code. So.
Okay, that's gonna come up in September. Let's see, this is September. In September then?
Next month.
Right, we'll be taking this to the Planning Commission September 28th, and then we'll be bringing it to council October 14th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. If anyone wishes to enter an exhibit into the record as part of.
Councilor Johnson. Alex,
I have my pen up. Alex.
I had my pen up
Oh,
earlier.
Alex, didn't see, I looked over there. I didn't.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I had my pen up, but Bessie was talking. The question I have is on the letter, paragraph 2. Can you please explain that? What is the disappointment about? KD?
Let's see.
I just want to get that off the K&D hearing. About simplifying the code.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I think it's a bit wide. What does he mean by that?
Jeff, did you want to weigh in on that one?
So, yeah, is my audio working now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We can hear you now.
All right, great. So the city has different types of review based on what is being proposed, and those different review types have different obligations associated with them, and generally the higher the review type, the higher the burden. And I think Dan's position is that some of the things that we have at a higher review type could be a lower review type, and some things that require process could be staff decisions instead of process. And there's certainly examples throughout the code where staff would agree with him. I don't know that his complete list is the same as our complete list, but it's a valid point that needs further discussion at some point in the future. It's just outside the scope of this project.
But that's all I wanted. Thank you very much, Jeff. Thanks, David.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right. If anyone wishes to enter an exhibit into the record as part of your testimony, please briefly describe the exhibit and then email it to cdaa@cityofalbany.net. We did not receive any testimony that had signed up for it. So, but does anyone that is online wish to testify on the proposed amendments? So, Okay, I'm not seeing anybody.
Mayor, I'd like to.
Okay, and who was that?
Mayor, this is Cameron. Can you see me? Cameron Sotomayor.
Do you have your camera on? Oh, that's your name. Can you turn your video on? Or did you just want to be by? You don't have to. If you don't
I
want.
can't, as though I don't know that it matters because I'm just speaking.
Okay, nope, that's fine. Go ahead. And just you'll need to state your name, spell your last name, and furnish.
So my name is Cameron Sotomayor. I live at 230 7th Avenue Southwest in Albany, Oregon. It's spelled Sotomayor, Settlemeier. And I wanted to talk about how this development code relates to Comprehensive Plan Goal 5. Goal 5, vegetation and wildlife habitat policies as noted in the staff report. Policy 2, encouraging the protection of trees of significant size. And policy 3, where possible, retain the environmental and aesthetic qualities of existing wooded areas. However, the staff report did not address policy 4 in the comprehensive plan, which says to require new developments to utilize existing mature and native landscaping and incorporate native trees and vegetation into the landscape plans. The proposal saying a clear and objective track outright allows removal of trees that are impacted by proposed development, but prohibits removal of those that are not. The proposed changes weaken an already weak large tree protection policy. And there's nothing in here that requires the new development to utilize existing mature and native landscaping as required by the comprehensive plan. Also, Comprehensive Plan Chapter 2, historic resources. The goal is protect Albany's historic resources and utilize and enhance those resources for Albany residents and visitors. Policies under this that are not in a staff report is policy number 2, maintain survey information which accurately reflects the historic characteristics and quality of each of Albany's historic resources. The problem we have here is many of Albany's historic resources in the city are not identified or inventoried. These reside in neighborhoods without protection from infill regulations because they're not in a historic district. Comprehensive Plan Policy 3C is ensure that the design of new construction within historic districts does not distract from the architectural qualities of the district, and that is not addressed here. Policy 7C, ensuring that development code regulations enhance the preservation and renovation of historic structures. There's no analysis of how these changes impact that. And policy 8, develop review criteria which would discourage those zone changes resulting in increased pressure to replace historic structures with more intense land uses. The proposed code changes weaken the underlying zoning districts where historic resources reside and weaken the protection of these historic resources. For example, the code is proposed to be removed from residential districts 2.4505. The design and operating characteristics of the proposed development are reasonably compatible with surrounding development and land uses, and any negative impacts have been sufficiently minimized. That is proposed to be removed from the residential districts. Also, Article 8, an applicant for a development that does not meet the design standards in Article 8 may apply for one or more adjustments pursuant to Albany Development Code 2.060 to 2.080, gives another pass to developers compared to the existing code. So basically there's more than one way to get their project approved. Also, the staff report mentions that 8.140 section 4 says setbacks in general. These changes make the code a bit less restrictive. In particular, it changes the setback rules so only homes facing the same street count towards the number, and it now ignores the requirement if only one home faces the same street. So this is particularly troublesome for me. So I'll give my own house as an example. It could create a loophole for developers and have unintended consequences for protecting historic historic resources. In my block between Ellsworth and Broadway, there are 4 houses on my block. They're all historic houses, and they all have the same setback. However, one of those houses faces Ellsworth. One of those houses faces Broad Albany. Only 2 houses actually face 7th Avenue. So if a developer was going to take one of the 2 houses and tear it down, that only leaves 1 house in the entire block that faces 7th. So the developer would go, oh, there's only 1, it doesn't count. Therefore, these setback rules don't apply, even though we used to have 4 houses on the same block, all with the same setback. So there's a major loophole there. 8.1406 says building heights. Again, these changes make the code a bit less restrictive. 8.270, section 4, height above 30 feet is now ignored for setback calculations. These proposed changes are a death by 1,000 cuts, relaxing the development code and allowing multiple paths the developer can take to win do not support these goals. It weakens the underlying zoning of historic districts that will result in increased pressure to replace historic structures with more intense land uses. The multiple paths approach means the developer has more than one way to find a loophole to his advantage at the expense and character of the existing neighborhood. These changes weaken infill development code standards meant to protect existing neighborhoods, including both surveyed and unsurveyed historic ones, in violation of the policies of Comprehensive Plan Goal 5 on historic resources. There is a lot of useful cleanup of the code. However, because of the weakening of natural and historic resource protections, I ask you to deny the proposed changes until these omissions are adequately addressed. And I will submit a copy of this into the record.
Okay. Those were really great code suggestions that you had, Cameron. So I don't know if there was ever any of that discussed in the task force. I was not a part of the task force, so it was sort of a selected group, and they did go to the planning commission, but and we had some joint meetings, but you brought out some really good perspective on that, of what you were kind of relating it to historic districts, which I don't think we had anybody representing historic districts that was on that task force. So those were really good points. Does staff want to, well, we will get to that, for staff can be able to address, it will give you some time, some of Cameron's points that he brought out. But does anybody on the council have any questions of Cameron? So Dick, yeah, Dick. Oh, you got to turn your mic on, Dick.
Oh, you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So Cameron, your complaints are mainly changes from the existing code that make the new proposed code weaker than our existing code. Is that correct?
That is correct. It weakens the code in relation to natural resource and historic protections as it relates to the existing code.
Okay. Did the landmarks, it's not advisory anymore, it's just landmarks committee. Did they examine these changes?
That's a question for planning staff, but not to my knowledge.
Okay, well, I'll ask the planning staff that question. Are they there? Any planners in?
Yes. Hi, I'm still here. Are you still taking testimony, or?
I got a question for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead and answer the question, David.
The answer is no, we did not. We took it to the Planning Commission, and that's normally when we have an amendment to the development code or the comprehensive plan, the process would be to take it through there. So the answer to your question, no, we did not take it to landmarks.
So
and these are the first time I've heard these comments from Mr. Settlemyer, even though these have been posted for about 2 months now. So I don't have any response yet to the comments that he's providing.
Okay. And is he correct that there's essentially nobody on the planning commission these days that's concerned about historic district situations?
I don't know how to answer that kind of question. I don't know that there's anybody on there that specifically has that
probably an
background.
unfair question. Okay.
All
But
right.
you've got Mr. Settlemeyer's questions recorded, and you're thinking about answers.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Maybe not tonight, maybe at our next meeting.
Okay. Was that it, Cameron?
That's all I had.
Thank you so much. Was there anyone else that wanted to enter an exhibit into the record over these legislative public hearing? If so, you just got to kind of yell at me, but I'm not seeing anybody. Okay. So with that then, David, did you want to respond to?
Sure. So on the task force, we actually had two people that had landmarks interest. Bill Ryle served on the task force and Larry Preston as well. So at least on the task force, we did have representation from people familiar with the historic districts and supporters of landmarks.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else?
That's it. No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. And does anyone have any procedural questions they would like to raise at this time? And with that, then I will declare the public hearing closed at 8:21 p.m. And then does the council wish to discuss this or ask questions of staff?
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
Are you closing both public hearings?
Yes, yep, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Both hearings. Okay, council have any questions? Hearings. Okay, if not, what would you like to do to this item? You do have an ordinance on page 361 and would have to be done separately. And the other one is the tree regulations ordinance is on page 669. Would you like to have the first reading done? Okay, Sean, would you like to read the ordinance on page 361? This one would be for the development code amendment package.
Yes. An ordinance amending ordinance number 4441, which adopted the City of Albany Development Code by amending the Albany Development Code text and adopting findings.
I move that the ordinance be read a second time in title only.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
I'd like to hear some answers to Mr. Cameron's or Mr. Settlemeyer's comments and objections.
Okay, all right.
And if it's brought back, I'd like to ask the staff not to repeat these 666 pages of stuff. I can read these again without having them be sent back again. So it's not objection to the number 666. It's objection to the weight of the item.
Yeah. Okay, so that was not unanimous. So will be brought back to the next council meeting for a second reading on that. And then also, if I think it would be good to know more from staff on the code suggestions that Mr. Settlemeyer did bring up. So that was something that was not really addressed during the task. Well, I don't know if it was during the task force, but was not during our planning commission joint meetings that we had. So, okay, with that, council, now you have, we have a first reading on page 669, the ordinance for tree regulations. Sean?
All right. An ordinance amending Albany Municipal Code Title 7, Public Peace, Morals, and Safety to update tree regulations for consistency with current practices and the Albany Development Code.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
In this change, it occurred to me that if you are a person with your neighbor having a nice tree right next to the property line, your neighbor can say, hey, City of Albany, I want to protect this tree. And then the rules say you can't disturb anything under the drip line. Well, the drip line includes your neighbor who has no say over it. What I'd like to know from staff is, would my neighbor be able to keep me from using my backyard by deciding that they're going to make it a protected tree without my acquiescence?
I think Rick Barnett is, I remember seeing Rick online somewhere. So did David want to answer it or Rick?
I would think either Rick or Jeff would be the ones to answer that are related to that municipal code change.
Okay. Or either line or need to get their microphone on.
I do see Rick online. He might, and it needs to be Rick. He may need a chance to get to his mute button there.
He's right there.
Unless he stepped out.
Yeah. Well, he's the one with the expertise to address the question.
Right.
I have it read. Code. We did it first time, not a second time. We get the answer before they take their second reading.
We can do the same that you did with the first ordinance and just do the first reading and then get the answers to your questions for the second reading.
Okay, all right. Let's just go ahead and do the first reading then.
Mayor, I actually read it the first time already, but I'm happy to do it again.
Nope. Okay, we did. So what we'll do is reading for a second reading.
Okay.
And then we'll come back with the answer to Rich's question.
Mayor, Rick has found his mute button if you want to hear from him.
Okay, there you are. Okay. So Rick, did you hear the question from Rich? Oh, nope, mute isn't working. Is anybody?
The mute is working.
Yeah, Mike is right.
Nope, we're not getting ya.
The unmute is not working.
Yeah. Sometimes, are you on a laptop? You have to go through your speaker system and turn it on. That doing it? Nope.
No.
Okay, well, we did it first. We have to do second readings. We'll do for the next meeting. And then Rick, if you can get that question then answered for us by then. But okay. All right.
We need a motion. I'd move to that the ordinance be read a second time in title only.
I would vote no.
I will too.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
We actually don't have to take action on it. It'll be second reading next one because we're basically holding it over anyway. So when we still do that is whether we're going to take action in one meeting on the overall ordinance. But But no,
So, Mayor,
anything,
Mayor,
yep,
I'm sorry, my light just went off because
okay,
that's how it goes. So both ordinances will come back to the next meeting for an automatic second reading.
correct, yeah.
Thank you.
We'll just state second reading for those. Hearings are closed. Okay, gotcha, all right, don't need to read the script on that. So, okay, that's it on the public hearings. Next is business from the public, and I do believe there was one person that wanted to speak. And I think I saw her on, which was Noreen Collins. But Peter, did you want to lead off on this?
Well, the council will remember that at the last meeting, we considered a liquor license application from Ms. Collins. And what you had in front of you was a letter from the police chief indicating there was no results of any criminal background check, which indicated that the recommendation shouldn't go through. But the council's preference was to wait until the 120-day permit was obtained. And part of the reason for that was because OLCC requires a vendor to have a permanent site and a permanent lease. Ms. Collins is looking at that. She has that. And I believe that she's going to make the case to you. Well, I should let her speak for herself, but we're trying to help her through the process, given the fact that it's a tough time for all small business people. So I would ask Ms. Collins to speak for herself here.
Okay, all right. Noreen, would you spell your name and your last name and furnish your address? And you'll need to turn your mute button on because we're not hearing you. Noreen, are you there? Or did she step out? Can you turn your camera on so we know you're there? Your video?
Let's see here.
Does she have a telephone?
Yeah.
No idea.
She's showing online. Her phone look like it's on.
Unless she stepped out or something for a bit, but
Can Peter give us the details?
yeah.
Council Olson, I can tell you that she's been working with our staff, with Chris Schindel, to try to obtain a 120-day permit. Given the exigencies of the circumstances, we've extended her 30-day permit, and I think no, she's not here yet. Oh, Noreen is online. We've extended it by 30 days, and I'll let her go ahead and give the rest of the details. Noreen, over to you. And
Noreen? She might be having the same problem with her computer.
Yeah. So
turn a video on, Noreen, if you hear us. At least we know you're there. No.
Council, while she continues to play with that, and we'll wait and listen carefully for her to come in. I'll just say that one of the options that the council had was to make a conditional approval of her liquor license application based on her successfully obtaining the 120-day permit. The council's preference last time was that that permit be obtained first. And I will just tell you that she is making all the steps she needs to take towards obtaining that. And we have confidence she'll continue in that direction. And I think that's what she was going to make the case to you about, was to ask you to conditionally approve her application for a liquor license.
Does the rest of the staff agree with you? I get the impression you agree with that. How about the rest of the staff? How about the police? Do they agree?
Well, Brad Lyles is online, and I would ask him to comment if he would like.
Yeah, and as long as she's taking the right steps to get that, the license, the mobile license, we don't have any other objections of her trying to get her liquor license.
Okay. Well, I'll move that we let her proceed with the conditional license.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, and any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. All right. So if Noreen was online, hopefully she heard that, so.
Write her a note and tell her she's approved.
Yeah. Okay, so we're still under business from the public. Is there anybody else that is online that wanted to bring some business forward to the council this evening? You just gotta yell at me if you are, because I don't see video. Okay, not anybody. All right, next is the back of your page, number 5, and it's approved the contract increase 14th and Oak lift. And I saw Stacy on. Yeah, Stacy.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and councilors. So staff is recommending that council approve an increase to the contract with Batesman Enterprises. They're located in Roseburg, Oregon. It's for the 14th and Oak lift station contract. The 14th and Oak lift station was constructed in 1979 and was the last remaining package lift station in our sewer system. We have, I think we had 5 of this style of lift station in our system, and over the years, we've been replacing them because they're unreliable and require frequent maintenance to keep them working. So work for this project included removing the existing package lift station and dry well, extending the wet well to ground level in order to install new submersible pumps. New electrical and control equipment was also installed above ground with this project. The contract increase that we're requesting, it's needed to address additional asphalt, sidewalk, and driveway restoration. The excavation footprint for the project had to be increased. It was increased because the sewer force main was deeper than we anticipated, and the backfill used around the pipe was predominantly cobbles and other river run material. So the excavation just didn't stand up during the work. All work for this project has been completed with the exception of the surface restoration, and there are adequate funds in the sewer capital project fund in reserves to cover the contract increase. Are there any questions?
Okay, questions?
What's the cost?
Let's see. So the original contract was $175,960, and the total change orders on the project are with the contract increase are $21,700, and so that includes the surface restoration, and then there was also some additional piping included in the change order as well.
So it's just 21,000?
Yes.
I move to approve.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Can hear you, Bill. Oh.
Okay, all right. Motion carried. Okay, and Stacy, are you going to be staying on till the end of the meeting? Yeah.
I'm looking at the agenda. I could stay on.
This will be from business from the, so just either you or Jeff, I'll have a question.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Should be there real shortly. Let's see. Okay, next would be authorized signatures. This is on page 679. And Captain Lyles, did you want to say a few things on this item?
I do. This is the annual contract signature request from the council so that the chief can continue to assign police vehicle lease contracts, and through the same group that we always have, leasing specialists, and it's usually done either with Landmark or Gresham Ford, but these are the actual patrol vehicles that are leased on 3-year leases, and then community resource style patrol vehicles that are 5-year leases. All other purchases we go out to bid on and typically try and make direct purchases from local vendors. But these actual police packages that come like with all of our equipment preset by our standards are through a lease contract, and we've done that for almost 20 years.
I'm going to approve.
Did you, Alex?
I'm going to approve.
Second.
All right. Motion's been made in a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. All right, thank you, Captain. Next is the adoption of the consent calendar, and if there isn't any items that need to be pulled off this evening, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
I didn't see it.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made in a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carried. Staff reports. This one's to request to approve 2 reclassifications in the city manager's office. If you remember, we did have this at the last meeting, and I am glad that this did come back because I kind of knew then, Peter, that no, we always take action on these items, so it wasn't our policy. Council, you just needed to take action on this.
You looking for a motion?
Yes,
I move to approve that.
Second.
I'll second that.
okay. All right, and any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, sign. Okay, motion carried. Next is the Water Avenue Plan discussion. And that must be Seth. I remember seeing Seth. Yeah, Seth.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Hope you can hear me okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a preview and get some feedback from you, the council, prior to the CARA meeting next week. And here's why. So there's an interesting relationship with respect to the waterfront redevelopment project between the city, its redevelopment agency, CARA, and elements of the project. In particular, well, and I'll just say this, funding and the impetus behind key elements of the waterfront redesign project are really driven by the urban renewal plan that was created at the inception of CARA in 2001. However, a key part of the waterfront redevelopment project is actually redoing Water Avenue itself, which stems from a plan adopted by council in 2008. So we have different agencies and desires here to accomplish in one large project, and one very expensive project as well. So right now we budgeted up to about 15 million. So if we think about the end of CARA and sunsetting the district, there's a little over 20 million left in available funds to spend. And we worked together with you and the Urban Renewal District, the CARA Advisory Board, and set aside essentially $15 million for this project. Now, it's a large area. There's a lot of different elements, and the money may not go as far as some people think it could or should, but of course, you are well aware that construction is quite expensive, and it's only been exacerbated in the last several years. So in 2008, when the Water Avenue plan was adopted by you, the council, there was some cost estimates done at that time, but nothing too significant. And as it stands now, a full build out according to the specs outlined in that adopted plan has the potential to eat up the vast majority of resources available through CARA to do the waterfront redevelopment project. So I wanted to get some feedback from you to kind of judge your flexibility or desire to maybe be flexible in elements of Water Avenue in order to allow for other elements of waterfront redevelopment to happen, namely the Dave Clark path improvements, not to the path so much itself, but to opening up views and some safety issues there, lighting and views to the river and access to the river, and then of course Monteith Park itself. At this point, like I mentioned, Water Avenue, the adopted plan spans 14 blocks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a slide and let you guys share my screen and kind of see the breadth of the whole project. But what I would emphasize is any trade-offs between a full or partial build out of Water Avenue has a one-to-one impact on what could be done on the waterfront relative to Dave Clark Path and that whole kind of waterfront area and Monteith Park. So let me share this with you. Can you see that there?
Yes.
It's kind of small. Let me just zoom in on a few parts, but I wanted to show you just, this is really encompassing. This is a visual that Walker Macy, our design firm, provided that kind of encompasses the entirety of what's been envisioned. And I would say this is obviously based on significant community input, hundreds of different touch points with community members and their input. And I would say this is really catching the majority of elements that the community wish to see happen along this whole corridor. It's not to say that we can do all of it, at least in the first phase of construction, but how it's here. So let's see if I can just zoom in a little bit. So on this side, and I won't go over this a lot because we'll cover it in great depth during the CARE meeting next week, but here's the elements for Monteith Park and the build out there. And as we move along to the east, what you see here on Water Avenue itself are, again, what was originally in the adopted plan in 2008. And this includes 4 blocks of what they call a plaza street. And the Plaza Street allows for it to be closed off for events and that sort of things. It's pavers, it's very pedestrian friendly. It incorporates on-street parking, but without a lot of barriers between parking and pedestrian and the roadways. So it makes it for a very kind of event-friendly space. As we move further to the east, the remaining about 10 blocks are referred to in that 2008 plan as Green Street construction. What I've learned as a layman in public works, at least, and maybe some of you would understand this better than I, but the Green Street, sort of that term that was envisioned 10 years ago, is really more of a standard street treatment that we would do today with respect to wastewater and stormwater treatment plants and that kind of thing that help with absorbing the stormwater. So really just imagine this as a normal, really good street construction. So for the next 10 blocks, all the way down to Main Street and what is essentially the end of the Edgewater Village development, and where the railroad tracks jog into the middle of the street there on water. So I want to just give you 2 suggestions and see what comments you might have. And the reason this is important is because we're at the point with Walker Macy now where the final design needs to be, it's going to be taken forth and fully engineered now. So we're past conceptual and sort of design elements, and we're into the we need to build, or not build, excuse me, but do the engineered plans that can be built out and be bid out. So there are 2 primary ways that there could be some cost savings. Well, 3 actually. And if you're open to that, I'll communicate that to the design team at Walker Macy. And if you're not, then we'll need to revise what's really can be captured within the scope of this project. So here's the three things. We could limit the number of blocks that are constructed on Water Avenue to the east side of the project. So say knock off 2, 3, or 4 of the finalized blocks in front of Edgewater Village. That's one option. Another option, and these could be done in concert with one another or separately. Another option would be to remove a couple of the intersections that currently are envisioned to have pavers on them. So if you envision like the intersections at the Wheelhouse or Calapooya Brewing, those are those beautiful intersections with pavers. There are 3 intersections along this corridor that have no through traffic. It's essentially a T, right? And so if we remove the pavers from those and just had asphalt through those, there is some savings as well. Roughly $100,000 of savings along this corridor here. And then the other significant cost saver would be to limit the plaza treatment from 4 blocks to 3, essentially eliminating the plaza treatment between the bridges. Plaza treatments are quite expensive. They come at about double the cost of a normal Green Street treatment. So between limiting a few of the blocks to the east potentially, and I would say it's an easy win to take out a few of the not take out the intersections, but just not use pavers there. So it's a materials choice. And then limiting 1 block of plaza style treatment, there is enough savings alone to do the waterfront section for the Dave Clark path and some really important parts of what could be potentially done in the Monteith Park as well. So I think that the opportunity is hopefully clear here, but I'd be very happy to have any comments, questions, or feedback from you on your willingness or desire to be flexible on the adopted plan for Water Avenue in order to facilitate other elements of redevelopment along the rest of the corridor.
So questions? So I think some of this, I mean, Seth, why don't you want this to be brought up then with the full CARE board for everybody to discuss it?
Oh, we will, Mayor. We absolutely will. The thing about the Water Avenue plan is it was adopted by you, the council. It wasn't a CARE adopted plan. And if we're going to make revisions to that adopted plan, or there's a desire to do that, I need to have feedback from you on that first. Otherwise, it will impact really what can be planned and presented towards CARE and the rest of the community for a final design, because we just know that it's not feasible or something we can't pay for.
Right. I mean, I understand that. I mean, that it was an adopted plan. But I mean, for us to go and say, change it now, we could still do that after it looks like that we need to change it. We don't really know until we go to the CARE board to really see, yes, the original plan is not going to fit in with this new concept, then we can change it. I mean, I guess it either way will work, but it's kind of hard to say we don't want to do the existing adopted plan when we don't have full numbers yet of what it would cost to be able to do that project. That's where I'm kind of a little stuck, you know, kind of hung up here. It's just like we don't know what those numbers are going to be yet. And, well, you know, the infrastructure does need to be, you know, the street reconstruction needs to be done, because other words, we'll never have funds for it. That was an obligation that we made when off the original plans. It'd be nice to know what more the numbers would be.
I can share some more exact numbers with you, but I can also tell you that if the 2008 adopted plan is built out in entirety, that will use almost the entirety of the CARE budget for this whole project. So I guess I'm not asking you right now to say what elements you'd like to cut out, if any, but is there a willingness to be flexible on the adopted plan from 2008 from the council's perspective, because that influences the rest of the design, which will then be discussed at the CARE board.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know there's, I mean, somewhere on the council that were never here when we did adopt that original plan. They might not know all the specifics to it. So I would imagine we would be flexible. because things do change after 12 years. But Rich and then Bill. Bessie, did you have your? Yeah, Rich?
Yes, I have a couple of things. Right now, Monteith Park, whether or not we make all the changes in Monteith Park, have to do with what are you going to do with the senior center? Is it going to be something where we decide we're not going to use that there anymore, which means we have to move it someplace else or combine it with the library or, do something else that we haven't made a decision on and that we don't have the money for. I agree, Seth, that it is the council that has to deal with the street. Kara has zero authority over any of this unless the council says, yep, okay, fine. So, from my perspective, okay, let's be a little easy on ourselves and take a look at all the angles. Be flexible. But I think we really need to decide if we're going to change Monteith Park that does away with the senior center there. Because if we're going to do away with the senior center, we have to do something about it. And we don't have a plan for that. So would it make sense to do a piece of Monteith Park and, less other places? So
Councilor Kellum, that's a great point. There's a lot of moving parts here, and we'll definitely talk about that more in depth. There are plans, ways to move forward in many of the scenarios which you suggested, and we'll talk about that in more depth next week. Absolutely.
Okay, Bill, then Bessie, and then Alex. I can't use the screen, so I don't know if you put your pin up or not. So
I've
Bill,
been hoping to pin up for a while.
well, I can't see you, so because the screen's up, so you'll be after Bessie then. Okay, Bill.
Seth, to answer your question, I can be flexible. I would like to look at the entire project, including the roadway. It doesn't make sense to do the improvements and not fix the road, or fix the road and not do the improvements. So, I'm willing to listen and be flexible. And my first thought is to chop 4 blocks off the end, but it's an appropriate discussion for the entire CARE board next week. And I understand what you're asking for tonight. So again, yes, I can be flexible.
Okay, thank you.
Betsy?
Yeah, first of all, Seth, it's a good catch. And I'm totally in favor of being flexible. Anything we can do to do it right. If we can save money, we've got to make sure that we do it right. So yes, I'm definitely flexible. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Alex?
So Seth, thank you, Mayor. I wasn't around in 2008. I was chasing kids around. Can I see a copy of the 2008 plan that was approved, or at least the concept? And also, I really appreciate that. Another thing is that we're doing the railroad crossings. Is the railroad paying for any of that railroad crossing updates?
Yeah, so those are 2 good questions. First of all, I'd be happy to send you the copy of the adopted plan. We have it in a PDF format, so you can look at that. Secondly, with respect to the railroad, the way things will be funded at this point is not fully ironed out. So the railroad and ODOT rail sometimes offer options for grants for some of the crossing arms, depending on how you deal with closures of some existing crossings, and how we deal with those crossings. And that has not been ironed out entirely yet. We're working with ODOT rail on this. They are still in support of the plan as proposed, which I'll send you a copy of. And I'll also say this, Councilor Johnson, what we're dealing with now is the full cost of the project. We've had pretty detailed cost estimates done, but there are many ways in which some of that cost can and will be offset by other grants and some creative use of other funds. So, for example, if we had some money from ODOT Rail to help with crossings. That could offset some of our costs and allow us to build other elements of the project. At this point, we're just trying to scope the entire thing. And one of the key elements that we tasked Walker Macy and their team with is actually exploring the various funding mechanisms, including ODOT and other grants and so forth. So that's going to come at a more mature phase of the planning and engineering process, but it is forthcoming.
Okay, so follow up with that. If we improve the crossings, is there a likelihood of increased train usage of that railway?
That won't be impacted by the crossings. That's really impacted by the owner and operator of that rail line and what they find to be a prudent use of their resource. So at this point, I mean, people say all the time, when's the railroad going to go away or whatever, but they've been pretty consistent with their use currently with a couple loads a night. And they've indicated to us that it's a profitable resource for them and they have no indication of getting rid of it or inclination of getting rid of it anytime soon, nor increasing or decreasing traffic as far as I'm aware.
All right, thank you. Okay, appreciate it.
What it really boils down to is any chance that the rail companies and ODOT Rail can find to improve safety on any crossings they have anywhere, no matter what their future use is. They typically try to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Dick, I see you. Are you mute? Turn your mic on. Dick, we can't hear you.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, can we drop the presentation?
Yeah, let me turn that off.
Thank you. Okay.
The Dick's about 4 inches wide.
Dick, we can't hear you, Dick. So did you get your mic back on?
This mic's on.
Is it? It is on. Try it again, Dick. No, it shows it off. Right up on top, the little green button.
Oh, okay. It's in the middle of the screen.
Yep, got you going.
Yes. I was on the council when that plan was adopted, but I was in the midst of a divorce and some other stuff. I don't recall that we were going to go clear to Water Street, and I don't recall we were going to pave it with gold bricks either. So I'd like a copy of that plan if I could have it. And glad to see you're thinking about scaling it back, and I hope maybe you can scale it back even further.
Okay, so it looks like the council is flexible then.
Okay, that's
water
very
out.
helpful. Thank you for your time.
Is that right? Okay, all right. Is that it? Thank you, Seth.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. Okay, that's it on that. Next is business from the council, but I don't want to hold up Stacy much longer. Council, if you'd kind of go first, I'll be quick. All right, Stacy, are you there? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, so it didn't dawn on me until thinking about 14th and Oak lift station upgrade. So our lift station that was done down on Water Street, you know, the end of Montgomery. So I'm receiving some emails, maybe some councilors have too, about town hall there, those residents that have been now experiencing odors coming from that new lift station. So when they were told that that lift station, you know, it wasn't going to be having any odor emissions, but so what I'd like to just, you know, maybe find out, or and I know you're probably working on it, but whatever can be done, be a new vent, new sort of filtration system, something to be able to find a solution to. And I'm presuming you're working on it, huh?
Yeah, yes, Mayor, we are. In fact, so I met with Chris Serkluski, who's the project engineer, as well as operations staff on Friday to discuss the odor issues. we've been monitoring the site daily. Part of the process of determining the best fix is knowing when the odors are occurring, so that we know exactly what's causing them. Because the thing is, it's not there, it doesn't always stink, but all of us that have visited the site have, you know, smelt the odor. This week, Chris Sirkluski was at the site to observe the station operating with the consultant. And it does look like, so we installed some sealant on a diversion structure. So it's a vault with a lid. So we installed some sealant on that lid, and it does appear to be working. What Chris and the consultant observed is that when the pump shut off, the sewer gets worked up in the wet well, and there's odor coming out when the pump shut off. And so the next step is we're going to be installing sealant on the lid to the wet well itself. And hopefully, since the sealant helped on the diversion structure, it should also help on the wet well. I'm hoping that that's going to happen this week. I think that people just kind of got sidetracked with the fire, because some of our staff live in the evacuation zones, and so I think that's what's happened.
Okay, well, good. I knew you'd be working on it, and I just wanted to, you know, an update. And I do know how many on the hearing about the issue, receiving any emails or it was kind of like from Ron Green and like Oscar Hall, where they live there. So they were the neighbors that didn't want the lift station, you know, located kind of close to their townhome. So you probably remember that. And now they are, you know, getting odors from the lift station. So thank you, Don. Maybe down the road, if we can find a solution, if you can kind of give us a little update and when there's a solution. But yeah,
absolutely.
Sorry I kept you late, but we're hanging.
Oh, that's fine.
Thanks.
Mayor, this is
okay.
I just wanted to add real quickly. One of the things that Chris has done is he's sent a letter to every tenant of the or owner within those townhomes to give them the same as the people that have reached out, and offered to provide them with weekly updates until a solution is in place, so they don't have to wonder what progress is being made. Taken very seriously. You have operations staff, consultants, and city staff working on it. Chris is going down on his own time on the weekends to try to visit the site at different times and make assessments. So it's being taken very seriously, and we're on the path to a fix, we believe. And if this one was to not work, we'll try the next thing.
Okay. Hey, thank you. And then when you do see him, if you can maybe let the neighbors know, have a council on okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Kind of start our business from the council. So first, Mike, did you?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Dick?
I'm having a hard time hearing you, but I want to apologize for having to move. My computer was running out of juice, it said, so I had to move to the dining room. And it looks like the lighting is not quite right here, but I was able to sort of stay in the meeting.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Then Bessie?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay. Bill? Oh. Nope. Rich? Rich, did you have anything?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Just kind of talk right into the
read an editorial. HRC are upset because one of their members on a private blog made a joke about how many sexes there are. Now, I don't know about you guys, I know that there are two. There are people who do all kinds of different things with what they have. Mostly that's nobody's business. However, if you'll recall in 2017, one of the problems that HRC had was they wanted diversity. The word, at that point, I pointed out that different people think that means different things, and I was proved to be correct. To me, diversity means you have a broad group of people who come from a lot of different places, so they have a lot of different ideas and a lot of different ways of thinking about things, so things get talked about. Evidently, from people in Corvallis and some of the folks at HRC, they have decided that diversity is whatever they think it is, not a broad spectrum, or they'll accept people who are middle of the road, they'll accept people who are left wing, but they won't accept people who are right wing. That's the whole reason to have a group of people. The whole reason to have HRC was to bring people of all areas and stripes and types and everything else together. That includes those of us that are wackadoodle left wingers and wackadoodle right wingers and everything in between. If you reject one side, it's not that guy who is not being diverse. It's you. They're not wanting to accept his diversity or anything that doesn't like what it is. I mean, it's same old stuff, different day. That's why I objected to it before, because people have their own. And why I object to what was in the paper now. That's all I got.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Rich. And Alex, anything this evening?
Yes, I have been going to the fairgrounds since this whole thing, since it opened. I was there till 10 o'clock yesterday, and they need our help. They're our neighbors. They're coming here, they're trickling in. 350 to 450 people spent the night there last night. And they gave me a list. I took a tour and they gave me a list of things that they needed. I posted it on Facebook Live, on Facebook, and a lot of my business partners and friends and customers or clients have been delivering all kinds of items to the center. But one of the things we're running into right now is that they need help sorting the clothes that were turned in, and also food handlers with the food handler certificate to help the Salvation Army prepare meals and deliver food to people. People are coming in. This afternoon, I met a gentleman from Blue River that lived by himself in his trailer, and he watched it burn as he was running away. So City of Albany has turned out wonderfully. I did a live this afternoon, and my phone is literally ringing. A farmer was giving hay to Lynn County Fairgrounds and also to Benton County. I talked to Shelley Beauchart Davis, and she said she had enough for the next 2-3 days. But he's standing by to deliver more when the need requires him to deliver. I recommend all of you on this call and City Council to go down, see what's going on. A lot of great things are happening, taking care of people from other cities. Our neighbors need our help. I know it's tough for us because the weather's bad. Some of us has health issues, but I can't tell you how moved I was when, this young 27-year-old man said, "Thank you for coming out." And I was moved to tears. And so Albany is shining right now. We need to continue supporting the people that are suffering and being there for them. And I hope that all of you go out and just take a tour and ask how you can help, and invite your friends to come out. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Alex. And Bill, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Well, yeah, Alex and I talked this afternoon. So we took a load of clothing out there. We found out the thing they really wanted was men's clothing. They've had so many people donate. Like Alex said, there's a big pile of clothes. But I think what impressed me was the organization. People, the sheriff's department's involved and a whole bunch of other folks, but very well organized.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that they had plenty of stuff. They were just missing specific items and, kind of a list of a few specific items, but they did have plenty of. I'm so glad. My daughter was telling me there's only 15 cameras over there. I would have thought there'd been more people on the lot.
They're trickling in. They're trickling in. They're trickling in.
What's that?
They're trickling in.
Yeah. So, because it is a huge parking lot, it can, but there's some, they might not have a camera to be able to stay in. So, and that's where it got, in use for folks. But come on, something else, Mike?
Yes. I know Coastal was collecting gift cards.
Yeah.
And how was that going? Because that's one of the things that I did, is get a gift card so that they could buy what they needed. And I keep seeing the other stuff, and I don't hear anything about if they're using those gift cards to purchase the stuff they need, like the new clothes and the flip flops and the hygiene stuff. Because I'm not going to say what I donated, but it was significant. And I haven't heard anything about that, and I'm just wondering how that was going.
So I do know that those are going to be used. I think it's case by case, because some people come in by themselves, some people come in with families. So I think they haven't started. I haven't heard them saying they're distributing those yet. But I do know that Blue Ox, the trailer park out there, the mobile community, has opened up his shower and bathe. That's why the socks and underwear and undergarments are really necessary, and also to wash their laundry. So it's a big effort. I definitely love to see you guys out there. I try to go twice a day to check in and see how I can help.
I was just wondering about those gift cards.
No, I agree, Mike. I totally agree, Mike.
I just would like to know what happened with them.
I will find out.
That's a good question. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I'm good, Mayor.
Okay. Peter, I lost you on my screen. Or I lost your video.
I'm
there.
here. I'm
Okay.
here. Just a few things for you to add on to what Councilors Johnson and Coburn had. We have not, at the city, stood up our EOC, but Chuck Reno, our emergency manager, is very active with a lot of, with several other department directors in supporting the county's emergency management efforts. As you know, Lynn Expo Center is an evacuation center, and Timberland Park is a backup, which Parks has made available for them. The dog park there is closed in anticipation that it may be needed for livestock or other animals. Our own Albany Salvation Army with Charles DeJesus will be running a canteen there today and tomorrow and for the foreseeable future. So he's put out a call for volunteers to help staff that canteen. And I have that contact information if anybody's interested in that. And then we've also got GAPS offering to feed children from 1 to 18 with free sack lunches. The YMCA, you should know, has also offered their spaces for overflow parking for evacuees. And then this morning, I got a request from the Sweet Home city manager asking whether we could support their staff with some temporary space for staff to work, and then also some temporary space for their city vehicle storage, which we said we'd be happy to help them. You should know that it's only a Plan C, because their Plan B is to go to Lebanon and try to stage out of Lebanon first. And then we also are working on, Rob Romeo is working on a request to look at the municipal airport for helicopter staging. And that may come through too, and I'll keep you apprised of that. I mentioned to you in an email last night that Republic Services had indicated they would be suspending services today, but I think you've heard elsewhere tonight that they'll resume service tomorrow. They have 30 people that are in locations where they might need to be evacuated. We, as a city workforce, have 80 people who live in areas where they may potentially have to be evacuated from. And the last thing I'll sadly mention is that the September 11th memorial, which was scheduled for Friday, we will unfortunately have to pull out of that just because of the operational demands on our first responders. But we'll keep that important date in our memory as well. So that's all I have, Mayor.
And I'm glad you brought up September 11th, because I was going to get a hold of Dave Legion to see if it was still going on. So, but I'll check with tomorrow on that. But no, and also tell Chuck Perino, thank you. He is our emergency management manager for the city. So we're very fortunate as a city to be able to do all this coordination with all agencies when we do have an emergency. So it's very helpful having him, and he is the professional in this. You know, we're not. So I'm so glad that that Chuck is really coordinate everything.
Mayor,
doing a great job. So
Mayor, I'd like to point out that Chuck has had to evacuate his own family from where they live.
Oh, you're kidding.
So in his office today, he had his dog with him.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah. So well. So okay. All right. Is that her? That was must. Okay. With anybody else, any other counselors have anything else for this evening? We have executive session to go into. Anything else? All right. Our next meeting date is going to be September 21st for work session. 23rd is a regular session. With that, I will read the script here, pulled on the phone. The City Council will now meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation per ORS 192.6602H. Representatives of the news media and designated other persons shall be allowed to attend executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the go-to meeting at this time. Thank you so much. At the end of the executive session, we will return to reopen public. Members of the public disconnect from the meeting now. Meeting. Your screen will display the message 4 p.m. that Jorge needs to unlock the go-to meeting.
Madam Mayor,
Yep.
there was some confusion about the meeting today because it wasn't on my calendar for the city or for on my feed. And because there was a bunch of deletions and different changes. So I was wondering if that could be fixed.
This meeting?
No, the one this afternoon.
Oh, I know, too. I didn't get it. And then.
So, Councilor Johnson and Mayor, that email has come to you from Holly as a meeting request. So and you both, I can send it to you again, but you're both on the list for that, and it should be on your calendars for the future. What she did was she took the non-electronic meeting request and canceled it and sent you one that was a Microsoft Teams request. So if any of you don't have that, you or Councilor Coburn or Mayor, let me know and I'll resend it. Okay.
Yeah, so it is on my calendar to pop up, but when I do the accept, it does not give me a link to a meeting. I need to still have the meeting sent with the actual link to a meeting. For some reason, the iPad, if I do accept, then there's no meeting link on it.
Okay. Holly, I'll ask Holly, and we'll work on all three of you tomorrow to make sure you have it on your calendars.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, all right. Okay. That was it then. Not seeing anything else. Peter, else. Okay. We're adjourned. So, thank you, folks.